had a woman at the funeral home yesterday told me, she said, you're going to have to stay with that mic because I couldn't hear you after you got off the stage the other night. And I'm like, okay. Huh? Yep. I said, all right. I said, I'll try to stay behind it from here on out. So, no, we're good. We're good. I'm going to share something else with you. Yeah, I hear you. Uh, I got, I seen somebody at the gym Monday morning. They asked me, had I talked to Brittany? I said, no. I said, I'll probably talk to her sometime today, but I ain't talked to her this morning. She said, well, I ain't going to tell you then. I'm going to let her tell you. And so Brittany called me. She said, can I come down there for a moment? I said, yeah, come on. She said, Daddy, something happened that ain't never happened to me before. And she said, I want you to hear about it. And she said, we was in worship Sunday morning. And she said, everything was going there good. Then we started singing a song, The Lord of My Heart. And she said, I got to hearing voices. So I looked at my keyboard player. Said she had this funny look on her face. There was a keyboard player I seen at the gym. And said that said she could sound like a choir singing. And she said, I know these folks out here ain't never sung that loud before to get over the system. So she called somebody Sunday night and she said, I want to ask you a question. You were sitting at the back of the church. Did you hear any voices in the church singing? She said, yeah, sound like a choir. And she said, I looked around, said most everybody was in the altar, but I could still hear that singing. And even after they quit singing, some of them could still hear it. She said, Daddy, I think we touched heaven with that song. I said, well, baby, all I can tell you is that's what it sounds like to me because I ain't got no other answer. And she said, it's just like you could hear that choir singing. It was the prettiest voices you ever heard in your life. And I was like, well, I said, that woman told you God's going to take your worship team to another level, didn't she? She said, yeah. And she said, I think we're climbing a ladder. So I thought I'd share that with y'all tonight. Job chapter 32. First verse. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Now, I don't see where Job was puffed up and prideful in this book. Do y'all? But his three friends he's talking about is Eliphaz. He is referred to as the one with experience. Then Zophar, he was a legalist. Then Bildad based all his accusations on human authority. Now, I ain't read nowhere where Job thought was puffed up and prideful. But these three friends was righteous in their own eyes because they couldn't see their wrong, but they could tell Job everything about him that was wrong. And they tried to tell him that if he had just confessed his sin and God would restore him. But in his heart, he knew he hadn't, but even though he had searched his heart. And when I read that, I thought, you got to be kidding me. Then in that second verse, now this little guy right here, he's something else now. Then was kindled the wrath of Elihu, the son of Barshel the Buzite, of the kindred of Ram. Against Job was his wrath kindled because he justified himself rather than God. Now, his anger towards Job was falsely accusing Job, because Job never put himself above God. Never did. And, and so sometimes I think that these folks and all these people he's coming in contact with, none of them still understands what the position Job is in. None of them still understand why he's going through what he's going through, but they think they do, but they don't. Don't make me a liar. Huh? Do what? Yeah. No, I ain't got a Billy Cook. Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Right. Way long way. No, don't make them right. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-uh. Yeah, we started out a little bit further ahead than they did. But at the same time, if we ain't careful, we'll find ourselves in their shoes. And so we have to be careful when we look at a situation in life with people and make sure that we don't fall in that same trap. Also, against the three friends was his wrath kindled, because they found no answer and yet had condemned Job. They couldn't. He got upset with them and angry with them because they couldn't explain why Job was in the state that he was in. Man, I mean, this little fellow, he getting mad at everybody, ain't he? Yeah, but he's like, well, and it'd just be like me telling Ronnie, look, you angry with Tim because you think Tim done something wrong, but you can't tell him what he done wrong. And a lot of times we find ourselves in that and everything. Now, Elihu had waited till Job had spoken because they were older than he. He wanted to hear what Job had to say. But at the same time, it makes me think, was he showing Job respect because Job was older than him and he had known Job before all this came up on him? Makes you wonder, don't it? But he waited for Job to speak. And everything. And I think because he thought Job was going to give an answer of why he's going through what he's going through. When Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, then his wrath was kindled. he got upset because these friends of his could still didn't have nothing to say. And he could no longer be quiet. Then Elihu, the son of Barshel, the Buzite, answered and said, I am young, and you are very old. Wherefore I was afraid and did not show you my opinion. He said, I did not give my opinion because I was younger than you, and y'all were supposed to be wiser than me. So he's now. It's kind of like a young preacher. He ain't been preaching long, but thinks he's got it all figured out. Yeah. 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 Uh-uh. And I said days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. He said, man, y'all been living longer than I have. Y'all ought to learn something over the years, but you ain't learned nothing. I'm just putting in the and kitchen meal cat old Mars Chapel lingo. Y'all ain't learned nothing. Y'all supposed to be these three wise men, but y'all ain't learned nothing. And so this young man, he's something else, boy. I'm telling you. We'll get on down here in a little while and we'll see how he is. And that's like I was fixing to say, like a young preacher. He ain't been preaching long. But he thinks he's been preaching long enough that he knows more than that old preacher's been preaching 60 years. Yep. And so that's what I see with this guy. Verse 8, but there is a spirit in man. And the inspiration of the Almighty gives them understanding. Now, he's on the right track. He's on the right track. But can he stay on the right track? Verse 9, a great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment. He to him said, well, look at me. Even though I'm younger than you are, I understand more than you think I do. And you know, and sometimes I think, well, Lord, does these kids understand more than we think they do? You know, but no. Let me tell you about Janice the other night. Now, if I want her to know, I'll tell her, all right. She ain't watching it. I hope. She said they'll sit back there on the pew the other night, and I said something in the pulpit. Said Lane just looked at her, started laughing. She said, Lane, hush. Hush, Lane. He said, I can't, but it was funny. And she said she never had, he was just sitting there drawing on a piece of paper. Then all of a sudden he just looks up at her laughing. They hear more than we think they hear, and they understand more than we think they do. Because see, he's been asking about this commercial that he's seeing on TV with David Jeremiah about the rapture. And this guy's on the ball field. He's fixed to throw the ball, and he just disappears. They're sitting in the classroom, the teacher's gone. Walking in the airport, a guy standing in line with his luggage, guy's gone, his luggage still there. He's looking at that and he's saying, "Hey, Blue, what's going on?" And I started explaining to him. He said, "Blue, is that the way it's going to happen?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How do I go?" I started telling him how he's going to go. And so he's interested. He's listening and he's interested. And in verse 10, "Therefore I said, hearken to me, I also shall show my opinion." He said, "Now listen to me. I got an opinion." That's what he's telling them. I got an opinion. Listen to me. Well, and verse 11 says, "Behold, I waited for your words. I give ear to your reasons while you searched out what to say." He says, "I waited for your wisdom. I listened and heard nothing." He's talking to his three friends. He said, y'all supposed to know all this. I listened and I heard nothing from you. Silence. Verse 12, as I attended unto you, and behold, there was none of you who convinced Job or who answered his words." He said, "I paid attention. I paid attention. But none of you gave Job an answer." Now, this might be a little off the beaten path. We may be going the long way around to get to the creek. But how many times when we're in a group of people in a conversation and we're talking about the Bible, we're talking about the Spirit of God, and somebody's sitting there eager to learn and it's been around, but yet we really give no answer. That's the reason he says, "Study to show yourself approved." Everybody says, "Oh, that's a preacher's passage." No, that's every Christian. That's every Christian. Study to show yourself approved. And so then, what does it says? Be ready to give an answer. Ain't that what it says? Verse 13, "Lest you should say, we have found out wisdom, but God thrust him down and not man." This little guy's not sure about wisdom being there. No one can thrust Job down but God. And that's what they're saying. And no one can tell Job what's going on with him but God. You know, and I believe that if we as God's people, God's children, we get earnest with God and get humble with God, and in His presence when things in our lives, God would talk to us and show us what the problem is. I believe that, because I've had Him rip my hide more than once. Now He has not directed His words against me, neither will I answer him with your speeches. He says, Job wasn't speaking to me. He was talking to y'all. And he says, so I will not answer Job as you would. Now, I tell you what, this little guy's learning something by not hearing anything, ain't he? And like he said, now he has not directed his words against me, neither will I answer him with your speeches. Means I'm not gonna do like y'all done him. I'm not gonna talk to him like y'all talk to him. I read one thing about on that, and it says, I will not judge and talk down to him like y'all did. But I just don't believe he'll give an answer as they gave to him. They were amazed. They answered no more. They left off speaking. Those three friends were stunned by Elihu and spoke not a word. You ever been around somebody and their knowledge of the Bible sometimes leaves you speechless? And you wonder, how does he maintain all that knowledge of the Bible? How does he retain all that? And that's, so I wonder sometimes about that. In verse 16, when I had waited, for they spoke not, but stood still, answered no more. He said, I waited, and still not a word. He was wanting to find out what was going on. Now, some writers say this little fellow right here was just being nosy, being a busybody. But I don't think that's what he was doing. I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he was wanting to learn something. I think he had seen Job in Job's heyday. I think he knew Job in his heyday. I think he knew how Job lived. Now he sees Job the way he is now. And he is just as intrigued as anybody else is. Now, that's what I think. That's what I think. I can't prove it, but that's what I think by just reading and studying. In verse 17, I said, I will answer also my part. I also will show my opinion. Uh-oh. He's done got to the point now it's my turn to talk. It's my turn to speak. For I am full of matter, meaning words. The spirit within me constrains me. I am full of words, but I must speak to be sure. He's speaking to be sure that he is following who he needs to follow. And sometimes, if we was in his shoes, we would sit back and we'd say, well, I really ain't so sure, but so I ain't going to say nothing. Now, kind of like us when it comes time to witness and testify for Jesus Christ. I'm not really sure, Tim, so I'll just not say nothing. But you can be assured of one thing, is that the devil is never going to give you nothing to glorify Jesus Christ for. He's never going to tell you to give him praise, glory, and honor. He's never going to tell you to lift up the name of Jesus. Never is. kind of goes back to that, don't cast your pearl before the swine, so to speak. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Now it's his turn. Now, going along with what Tim said, now some of the people that me and nieces worked with over the years, you start trying to talk to them about the Lord, about something, you can tell right quick they don't want to hear it, don't you? Can't you, niece? And you're like, and you feel the Lord kind of pull you back away from them at that point in time. But sooner or later they're gonna come back around and they're gonna want to talk to you. They just don't want to talk to you in front of their friends because they got a reputation to uphold. Well, I threw my reputation out the window a long time ago, so. Where do we get to? 19? Behold, my belly is as wine, which has no vent, and it is ready to burst like new bottles. Like old wine, like new wine and old wineskins. You ever felt like you were so full that you could just bust? You ever felt the Spirit of God in you so full that you got to have some avenue to let it out? Whether it be a shout, dance, run, whatever it may be, testify, sing, whatever. It's built up in you so much you have got to express it. That's what he's talking about. It's built up now, son, and I'm ready to let it go. It's kind of like what they call preacher's itch. When you hadn't preached for a month or so, you get that itch. And Frank, you just waiting for service to start so you can throw your hat in the ring. But you know, when all the preachers around it came to visit and during revivals and things, all of them had preachers each. So they would all go at it. Boy, you'd have 5 or 6 preachers there a night, every one of them preach. And then you know what would happen? You'd wind up seeing people saved. You'd wind up seeing people delivered. I went to Lindsay Hall one night. Yep, Tim Rickett was there. I went to Lindsay Hall one night and Brother Marcus was preaching a revival. And I was sitting there. Boy, and it was me and Keith Jones, Kenneth Smith, and a couple more sitting there on the front pew together. And Brother Charles gets up there and they sing and everything. Brother Charles, well, it's time for the preacher. Marcus looks over and slaps him on the bottom of the boot and said, "You preaching tonight, not me." I said, "Do what?" He said, "You're preaching tonight, not me." And Charles said, "Come on, Marcus." Marcus stood up and said, "I ain't preaching tonight." He is. On the spot. Man, we had a time that night. Oh, that was the night that a woman come up. She'd been struggling with nicotine addiction. She got set free. A couple got saved. And Marcus told me he got his hide busted. That's when I got mine busted too, so don't feel bad. But you see, that's sometimes when you got it built up in you, there's an opportunity God's going to give you to let it go. He's going to give it to you, let it go. Verse 20, I will speak that I may be refreshed. I will open my lips and answer. Now, that's pretty good, ain't it? That's pretty good. Verse 21. Let me not, I pray you, accept any man's person, neither let me give flattering titles unto man. I'm not going to cut him no slack. He's talking. He said, I'm not going to cut him no slack. I'm going to be straight up with him. I'm going to tell him what I think. But you know, you better be careful before you start doing that. You better be careful before you start doing that. In verse 22, he says, for I know not to give flattering titles. In so doing, my Maker would soon take me away. Now, what do y'all think he's talking about there on that last verse? He's been holding his own up to now, I think. This is what I think. So y'all go ahead. Y'all spit y'all's out there, and I'll spit mine out there. Do you thinking about a? Well, yeah. What about the publican? Smote his chest, and I'm not as the others are. Yeah, right. Anybody else got anything to throw on that verse? Hey, to tell you what, I think he's trying to put himself above Job here in this verse. I think he's trying to set himself a little bit above because of what Job is going through. That's just my opinion. You know, and you may have a different opinion of it than I do, and that's fine. But that's just kind of what I think when I read. For I know not to give flattering titles, and so doing, my Maker would soon take me away. Right. Sure have. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's older than I am. Uh-uh. Not at all. Right. Well, any man behind this book board, God gives him something to give to somebody. Whether they're young or old, has to do it with respect and honor. It has to. Mm-mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Well, well, going back to what you said about when I say about the man behind the book board, and across this county, there's a lot of folks that put their pastors at the same level that God is, and that's a no no. It is scary, and how they continue to grow and prosper, I do not know. I mean, a good friend of mine, he pastors one of the largest churches in Decatur, and they started doing him that way. He said, "Oh, wait a minute, y'all back up." He said, "I'm just a man. That God sent me here to do a work, and I got a job to do, and I'm gonna do it. But I'm just a man. I ain't no God. I'm just a man." And he had some on his board that got mad at him and told him that if he had that kind of attitude, they didn't really need him. I mean, what it was, they figured out, Tim, they couldn't control him. They couldn't control him. And, I believe that you give respect and honor to the man behind the book board. Don't get me wrong, I do. But you don't exalt him to the level that Jesus Christ is or God is. You don't do that. I don't care who he is. I don't care how many degrees he's got on his wall. I don't care how smart he is. I don't care how anointed he is. He's not Jesus Christ. He's not God. That's my cookie. I had the cookie jar for tonight, and that's the way. I think if the man behind the book board would be honest about who he is, people would see he's not on that level. I really do. Church, I love you and I appreciate you. Thank God for you. Thank God for you being here. Sunday is lunch after church. Don't forget. Sunday, we having lunch after church.